सर व्हिडिओ ऑन कराल तुमचा व्हिडिओ.
So good afternoon, dear students. Today is the 22nd November 2023. We continue with our lecture on ethics. So today we talk about public civil service values. And ethics in public administration. So now, when we are facing any ethical decision, that means if we have to make any ethical decision, there is always a dilemma. Yes or no? Why? Why there is a dilemma? See, now basically, all these decisions are associated with power. Okay, so we have authority. Now there is a chance of abusing this power. Okay, there is a chance of abusing this power and basically to use this power for one's own personal interest. So instead of doing something for what the position is given to us, we might further our own gains. And that is why, I mean, the public civil servant can misuse the power, right? That is why we need ethical framework. We need or we don't need. नींद में हो आप लोग? हाँ? नहीं? फिर? So now, if we have to safeguard this from being abused, then we have to focus on values. It's coming. So public values. So we are supposed to focus on values. So what does the term value mean? Value means what? So basically, the worth of something. Value means whatever we give worth, something which is worth. Okay. So when we give something which is value, that means what is worth, we pay importance to. So how do you define public value? How will you define public value? बाकी स्टूडेंट किधर ऑनलाइन गए? हाँ? How will you define public value? Okay. So basically, what is created and sustained for the public? What is created and sustained for the public is public value. So by the government, what is created and sustained is public value on behalf of the public. Okay. So that means this is sustained, created and sustained to gain value. That's why it is public value. So who is the caretaker of this value? Civil servant means the government is there. That's right. Civil servant only, obviously. So government takes care of this value. Now, how does this value is created? How do you create this public value? How do you create this public value? Anything for it to be valuable, how do you create? Hmm? Okay. How can we say that something has public value? Anybody? How can we say that something has public value? Hmm? Come. So when policy and management strategies are feasible, or rather politically legitimate. When it is feasible, when it is sustainable, yes or no? Operationally possible. Now the railways, for example, do they have public value? Yes or no? Why do we say they have public value? रेलवे में ट्रैवल करते हो या मुझे लगा आप लोग नहीं करते इसलिए कहाँ से आते हो आप थाने से थाने के बाहर जाते हो कहाँ जाते हो कॉलेज मतलब उठे थे आर्गर so you travel or no so what is the benefit of this train for you रेलवे को कितने साल हो गए कितने साल हो गए रेलवे को 170 170 171 172 have you seen that there is a change in the function of the railways yes or no during the British time it had a different role and function yes or no post independence did have a different role and function and now what role and function is it having now we are having which kind of trains local trains अभी अपने प्रधानमंत्री जी सब इनॉग्रेट कर रहे हैं ना आप देख रहे हैं ना वंदे भारत हाँ तो क्या है वो क्यों कर रहे हैं फिर वो सब पेपर में आने के लिए हाँ ओके
exists in the public sector. In privatizing, then it might not be accessible.
Yeah, it will not be accessible. Correct. But I'm asking why it has public value right now. Now it is in the public sector, no doubt. Why it has public value?
It will take common example of local things. The taking rates are cheap, so that everybody.
Okay. So how can this public value be destroyed? See, you are the safeguarder or the keeper of this public value as civil servant. How this can be destroyed?
Corruption.
Corruption. Opposite of this, it will destroy the public value. That means if it is not sustainable, supposing if you create something which is not sustainable, like now there are many, sanctuaries or forests or gardens. Now, if they are neglected, what does that mean? It's a waste of taxpayers' money. Are you understanding what I'm trying to tell you? So that means it is not sustainable. So when you build something which is not sustainable and which is not going to generate some kind of public value, okay, so then that becomes, it is a loss of public value. So exactly opposite to this, when the policy and management strategies are not legitimate, that means you can talk about it in terms of politically motivated. Sometimes some decisions to erect maybe some kind of statues or maybe some kind of things or monuments are basically, only to boost the political image rather than to really do all these things. You're understanding what I'm saying? So then that does not become public value. Are you following what I'm saying? Yes or no? Okay. So now what are the ethical standards for civil servants? So what are the core values civil servants should have in public? What are the core values of public administration, basically? In simple words, what are the core values of public administration? आप लोग को पेपर 2 हो गया है, जीएस पेपर पढ़ा है तो उसमें नहीं बताया. गवर्नेंस टॉपिक हो गया कि कहाँ तक हो गया वहां पे? Okay, anyway, tell me what are the core values in public administration? What do you think can be the first value? Civil servant is no, he's fine. Obviously, वो तो उसका क्या? I'm asking what is the core value? He is accountability. Without accountability, is there any kind of, does he have responsibility? If he's not accountable, is there any responsibility? So the first civil service value is accountability. So basically, it needs to prevent corruption. Prevention of corruption is the primary goal. And to prevent corruption, civil servants need to be accountable. Yes or no? Okay, so first is accountability. Now, how do we bring accountability? By transparency. Okay. So how are public administrators accountable? How do they become accountable? What makes them accountable? What is that makes them accountable? Sorry. Rules, regulations, law. So basically, you can say constitution. Can the civil servant be made accountable? So there are 12 obligations by which civil servants are made accountable. There are more than that, but basically the author Waldo has mentioned 12 obligations. First is constitution. Second is law, nation, country. What is the difference between these two? What is the difference between these two?
Culture, all the aspects of all.
But people have built up on this country of both characteristics like
You're a student which field? No. Which stream? What subject are you studying? Which?
world science.
That's why you know. Otherwise, you would not know this. It's impossible to know this unless you have political science. उसने बताया भी. That is the right definition what he gave. Give me the example of a nation and a country. अगर आपको ये नहीं आता है तो आपने कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन को नहीं समझा.
Is the people and country is the language.
Nation is the people, country is the landmark.
So, for example, France is a nation, but Russia is a country.
No,
Entirety of Russia.
no, that's not it. See, nation, what he said, a nation can exist without a country also. Uyghur nationals, they can exist. Okay, so that is called nations. All these who are national, so they can exist in French national can be in any part of the world. He's a French national, but when it comes to France, France is a country. To make a country, we need 4 elements. State, government, population. I'm sorry, not state, territory. Territory, government, population, and sovereignty. These are the 4 elements that make up a state. If any one of this is missing, so a nation can be a person without a territory also. An Indian national can exist anywhere in the world. That does not make him a state. He's an Indian national, but not a state by himself. Because for a state to exist, it needs a population, it needs a defined territory, it needs a government, and it needs sovereignty. Are you all following what I'm saying? So there is a difference between a national. So we can say that's why we find people fighting nationalism. You understand it? Uyghur national. Have you heard the Uyghur? Nahi suna aap. Central Asian or Kurds. Have you heard Kurds nationalism? Yeah. So you all have heard Kurds national. So these are fighting for, like first the Palestinians, who they were a nation. They were not a state until it was declared as a state. Or even the Israelites for that matter. They were not a state. Okay, only in 1948 they were acknowledged as being a state. Yes or no? Yes. Otherwise, the Jewish people were scattered all over the world. When they all came back to their land and they occupied that territory, that became the state of Israel. Okay, so nationals can exist any part of the world. That is the feeling of oneness, culture, okay, that unity which binds them with a language, culture, common language, common unity, common religion, that becomes a nation. Okay, but a state not necessarily. State requires territory, government, population, and sovereignty. Have you understood what I'm saying? So even an administrator is bound by the rules of the nation or the country. He has to work for the country. He cannot work against the country. Did you follow what I'm saying? Yes or no? Okay. Democracy. 4th point. E is democracy. That means according to democratic principles, then organizational norms. Okay. Then professionalism. So all this, so on and so forth. So all these things are obligations of the civil servant to follow to make him accountable. That means these are the factors which make a civil servant accountable. Did you all follow what I'm saying? So he is accountable to all these. There are others also, okay? But basically this. The second core value in public administration is citizenry. How do you understand citizenry? See, now one thing which I want to tell you all. I told you last time also that many students are not good and they don't score good marks in GS paper 2. The basic reason is this one. That means conceptual clarity is not there. Okay, and that's why. So now tell me what citizenship, how does it play importance in public value? First is to be accountable. Second is citizenship. How citizenship can play an important value? Sometimes citizenship are classified under customer service. Can you call that as a citizen? Governments tend to do customer service. B2C, G2C. Sunai? Huh? What is G2C? What is G2C? What is G2C? Who answered? Mayur? Sagar? Sagar. Who gave the answer? No, I asked. Who gave the answer? What is your name? I forget your name. Vaibhav. Difficult name. Huh? Okay. So consumers of government. So classification of customers are customers to the government. One kind of citizen value. Second is clients. Sometimes some governments treat citizens as clients. Yes or no? That means clients means how can you call them as clients? Are they clients? Who do we call clients? They are recipients. Recipients of government service. Okay. Third category is citizens. Who are citizens and who are subjects? मुझे इस दोनों का इनका मीनिंग बता. Subjects are to a monarch. That's right. Yes. So they are politically affiliated. That means they have certain rights and duties. Yes or no? And here they are holders of obligation to government. They are duty bound. Here they have rights. Subjects don't have rights. They are basically duty bound. That is what exactly according to the monarch. Third principle is of core value is legitimacy. Third core value of public administration is legitimacy. So what do you mean by legitimacy? No. Legal support means different. Legitimacy means what? When do we say an authority has it is a legitimate authority? Okay, still. See, for legitimacy, it needs consent. Very, very important. Consent of whom? Governed. Yes, that's the answer. Consent of the governed. So, for any authority to be legitimate, otherwise, then there are violence. There are protests. We have seen in Myanmar, what happened? They are protesting against the military junta. Why? Because they do not accept the authority of the military junta. That is considered as the illegitimate rule. Or in Pakistan, for many times, we see that they are fighting against the who? The military or the ISI. Okay, so because they have placed their own dictator kind of governments, right or no? So that means they have no legitimacy. Those governments are illegitimate. Are you following? So bureaucracy needs legitimacy. So it needs the consent of the governed. Without that, it cannot hold legitimacy. Fourth is public interest. fourth public core value is public interest. That means a civil servant has to work in the interest of the public. That you all know. So public interest means what? For the good of whom? Good of whom? Good of public. But now, as you know, that good of public means this public can be, I mean, in large amounts. Okay, not necessarily everybody. There will always be some public who will not be satisfied. Okay. Then fifth is devotion to work. So as a civil servant, you are supposed to be accountable. You are supposed to be guarding the citizenship values. You are supposed to be legitimate. You are supposed to be working in public interest. You are supposed to have devotion to work. Now, what does this mean? Why is the bureaucracy is called as red tapeism? Why? Okay. Still. You know, most of these work was done secretively. There was no transparency. So what used to happen? Only now, post the RTI, the things have become more open. Others, everything is, so there is no devotion. That means it is like as if they are holding the power and authority. Same like the colonial rule. Are you following what I'm saying? In those times, it was understood for them to do that thing. But post-independence, so that devotion to work, that means a civil servant should be devoted to his work. So now what I want you to do is to find case studies for each of these. Only then your answer becomes valid. You understood what I'm saying? That means where a civil servant is now vice versa. That means both the case studies showing somebody as accountable and a civil servant as unaccountable. आप समझ रहे मैं क्या बोल रहा हूँ? That means in certain issues you have to find out where civil servants have been accountable and where civil servants have not been accountable. That means they have not followed the core value in public administration. Similarly, where they have broken the law of citizenship. Okay, where they have allowed certain excesses to happen, you know, treating the in form of a client or what for personal benefit. Okay, and where they have really worked for the citizens. Third, legitimacy. Sometimes some people are holding illegitimate. Sometimes you find some people creating false IDs. So are they legitimate? No. Okay. Then public interest. So this you will find many case studies where they are working for public interest or they are working against public interest. Fifth is devotion to work. So there are few officers who are completely devoted and dedicated to their work. You find out those examples. And there are some officers who are not dedicated to their work. So you find out that example. Did you follow what I'm saying? Then sense of mission. Sixth, sense of mission. Now, any public value or core administration has to have a mission. You see, all the private nowadays, obviously, the government also has mission objectives. If you read any policy of the government, they have mission and objectives. If you read any of the policies of the government, say if you read the National Urban Rural Mission, okay, it has some mission, it has some objectives. Now, why do they keep this? So that there is a direction. If there is no mission, there is no objective, is there going to be a direction? That will be a loss of the public administration. Now you understanding. So therefore, sense of mission. So you have to understand what are the values you need to imbibe when you are entering into this. So when you are answering, why I'm telling you these points, because when you are going to deal with ethical dilemmas, you have to keep in mind all these aspects. That means as a civil servant, am I accountable? Citizenship, I mean, whatever the case study is given to you in the paper, and not only in terms of a theoretical basis, but practically also when you are in the field, how accountable, how you are going to help the citizens, how you are going to be legitimate, how you are going to legitimize. Supposing if you are doing something, you are bringing in some policy, how are you going to, like for example, vaccination. Now, many people were not ready to legitimize vaccination due to various, like now, if you are reading the newspaper, then the Supreme Court has, given a slapped this thing on whom? अभी न्यूज में चल रहा है. They told somebody that stop promoting these advertisements. Classes का जाने. बायजूस जाऊ दे अभी classes नाही बोलत. Patanjali. So they have slapped this thing on Patanjali saying that stop promoting because he's criticizing the modern medicine, the allopathic doctors, and talking about vaccination and not to take. So when he's promoting that, so he is in one way hindering the value in public administration. That's a classic case study where you can give that how Patanjali has been, I mean, how that's why the Supreme Court has asked him, and they will fine 1 crore if he continues with this thing. If you have read the report, what has come in the newspaper. Okay, so you have to find out that how it is working against the public interest. Then devotion to work. Have you all followed now? Yes or no? Next is integrity and honesty. 7. Integrity and honesty. Now that I don't need to tell you. You already know. Okay. Then fearlessness and courage. Now we can see a very classic example is during the time of emergency. What happened? What happened? All the bureaucrats were under the government. The government was trying to completely, and they were compiled. They complied to listen to the government. So should the bureaucrat be like that? Or rather, should they be fearless and courageous? क्या होना चाहिए? हाँ? आदित्य क्या होना चाहिए? Fearless. तो क्या सिंघम बनना चाहिए? हाँ? बोलिए. He should work under government. He is not supposed to listen to everything that the government says. Yes or no? Okay. Then spirit of service and sacrifice. A civil servant should work with the spirit of service and sacrifice. So these are some of the core values. Now, what do you think can be the problem for implementing these values? Oh, background sound there once. Huh? What are the problems of values? Umang? How do you implement all this? What is the problem with these values? How can you implement them? What will be the problem? Hmm?
Civil servants are not directly accountable to the people. They are indirectly accountable to the people by elected people.
Okay. Then that's more of a constitutional problem, which is right. Some other things that why these values cannot be actually, I mean, it is a difficulty while implementing them. First of all, there are material and resources problem. That means whatever the materials are required and resources to carry out those values to implement, that becomes difficult. Why? Why? Vaibhav, why?
national activity.
Okay,
And due to high rates of corruption over there, he wants to be dedicated to his work and provide good roads to hospital facilities to people living in this area. But due to high rates of
find case study. Whenever you speak in the civil service, there is a rule. Speak with case study. You understand the meaning? That means if you have to prove anything, you have to speak with that this is there. You're not speaking in the air. I accept what you said. You're not wrong what you have said. That's correct. But I'm just telling you that when you're writing, if you start this habit right now, you will look in the newspaper, you will search for such examples and you will put it in your answers. So if you start developing this habit of constantly looking at it, केस स्टडीज की ये केस स्टडी कहाँ पे बैठेगा आपके पूरे पेपर में आप जीएस पेपर वन से ऑब्वियसली हिस्ट्री को छोड़ के history does not require case studies. History has its own this thing. Geography, for example, geography also requires case studies. Okay, so volcanoes, earthquakes, or any other kind of things now which are happening now recently in Iceland. What was happening in a single day? What happened? आप लोग न्यूज पढ़ते पढ़ते नहीं current affairs is very, very important. You should follow the current affairs. So there were more than so many earthquakes in Iceland. And why it was happening? What was the reason? What was the reason? So you can put that in your geography paper. See, UPSC wants to see whether what you have studied, do you understand that practically? That means in the newspaper, when you're reading, are you reading with that keen eye? Do you have that understanding? This is connected with your syllabus. So that's exactly. So when you're reading newspaper itself, you have to make it a point that you have to integrate it with your theoretical part. That means जो भी आप पढ़ रहे हो textbook में, उसके साथ आपको उसको integrate करना आने चाहिए. You should be able to integrate both of them. Did you follow what I'm saying? Okay. Now, so these values, the problems is then multifaceted society. Now, there are various dimensions in the society. Like now, for example, take Manipur. Why the violence took place? Because of the two major tribes clashing. You understand? So not being able to fulfill the demands of the society. That led to the eruption of that. Not that it was now, it was there from previous only. But probably had they handled that previously, it would have not gone to such an extent. Had the administration intervened at the right time, see, instead of blaming this one, that one, and everybody, finally blaming the tribes or blaming the other people and then blaming everybody. So administration normally tends to pass the buck. You're understanding? They pass the buck on the politicians. Politicians will pass the buck on somebody else, on the central government. We are not getting aid from the central government, so on and so forth. So that's what goes on. So instead of doing that, we should not, as civil servants, you are not supposed to do that. When you know of the situation, you need to diffuse the tension. Are you following what I'm trying to tell you? So this you should find out that where there are, because every society is unique. So in those society, what kind of a culture? It's a cosmopolitan society. Like now, if you say Mumbai city is a cosmopolitan society. So obviously the demands are going to be varied. You can't be looking only at one particular society, section of society, or one class in the society, or one category of people in the society, or one. No, you have to look at the society at a broader perspective. Yes or no? So that is what a civil servant has to do. Only then he can use that value. He can gain value. That means the value of public administration can be completely enmeshed in that society. Otherwise, he will not be able to function. Are you understanding what I'm trying to tell you? Like, for example, Mumbai riots. So what happened? That is again because there was not proper controlling. That means they were not able to monitor the situation. So it led to riots. And we have seen Mumbai has faced severe riots. So this could have been controlled. Are you following? This could have been avoided. So this is where the failure of the administration. The administrative machinery has failed in doing its job. When they receive the reliable intelligence, probably they could have diffused that tension. So this is where when knowing that the society is multifaceted, we need to be taking. So these are one of the challenges, one of the major challenges. So it can come, UPSC can ask, explain the dimensions, the various dimensions of the multifaceted society and the problems faced by public administration, public administrators, or ethical concerns faced by public administrators. I'm giving an example of what question can be asked. Did you follow what I'm saying? So there you are faced with various kinds of problems. So that time, what are you going to do? You can't look at it only from one perspective. You're understanding? So you have to be able to give a multifaceted viewpoint that what can be done. So I gave you example now of this Manipur incident. So this could have well been, because it is not something new which was happening there. Or for example, Nagaland also. So that also is a very long brewing history. And slowly it is, or now even talking about this Khalistan, why again it has come up. Again, that also has been a long brewing issue. So they are not addressing the problem, or for that matter, the Naxalite. So when you don't address the issue over a longer period of time, what happens? These start becoming more and more. They, suddenly they are dormant. Suddenly they attack. Are you following? And that causes the problem. So when they attack, they cause a severe problem. So that's why to curb that, we have to understand the multifaceted dimension of the society. Yes or no? So there are certain ways which we can do this. First of all is by accountability tools. By having proper, that the civil servant should be made accountable at all junctures. Conduct codes. First is by having accountability tools. Second is conduct codes. You all know already there is a conduct code, civil service conduct code. Okay. Third is monitoring mechanisms. Monitoring mechanisms. Then audit methods. Audit methods. Then supportive structure. Supportive structure. Okay. Assertive communication. What do you mean by assertive communication? Huh? What do you mean by assertive communication? तुझंच आवाज येत होता ना आता. Assertive communication. त्याच्याकडे बघू नको, इथे बघ. Yeah. To evoke some kind of provoke, evoke. What will it be? Provoke or evoke? Okay. So these are how you will handle the situation of the values, how to deal with the values. Okay. Now there are ethical concerns in government and private institutions. We have to look at that. What are the ethical concerns in government and private institutions? Every organization basically has three main pivots on which it runs: structure, process, and behavior, or three essential parts. What do we mean by this? नवीन पुस्तक आणलं तू. ललित, स्ट्रक्चर का मतलब क्या होता है? Now there are different divisions in an organization. That is nothing but the structure. Like the finance ministry has to see to different divisions where it will provide. Yes or no? Supposing if there are conflicts between the various organs, so that is will be resolved. So that is the structure. So there should be equal consideration, equal funding should be given. Process. Process involves planning, control, evaluation. This all comes under process of an organization. These are part of the process. Part of the structure, different sectors or divisions, okay? And behavior, how it interacts with the environment. Within the organizations, intercommunication and inter and intra communication. Okay. So behavior with outside environment and with the employees and with the employers. Okay. So what are the ethical concerns in public organizations? What can be the concerns? Pratik? What are the ethical concerns? I'll give you for clue historical. There can be historical concerns. There can be political concerns. There can be social concerns. There can be economic concerns. Now tell me in terms of this, what can be the concerns in public organizations? How does it affect the ethical character of a public organization? For example, bakshish, corruption. Is corruption something new to India? क्या वो ब्रिटिश सरकार की रियासत है? हाँ? उसके पहले करप्शन था? कब से है करप्शन? कब से है? Do we hear in Chanakya's Kautilya's Arthashastra, do we hear about him talking about corruption? Yes. So we can see corruption is there, so that continues. In the Mughal period, bakshish. In the British administration, they had some other kind of corruption, and today also corruption continues. So ethically, it is a tryst for the public organization. So even during the Gupta or Maurya period, all those time periods, there was corruption. Even in the Mughal period, there was corruption. Even in the British period, there was corruption. Even now, there is corruption. What has changed then? So that means ethically, historical context, it is there only. In the public organization, corruption has been there. Public officials have been corrupt. Whether you go to trace the history right back from the ancient times or what the UGC has said now. हिस्ट्री को कैसे डिवाइड करेंगे? हाँ, आप लोग न्यूज़पेपर पढ़ते ही नहीं, ऐसा क्यों? अरे दे गोइंग टू चेंज द एनसीईआरटी बुक्स ना. हाँ, तो उसमें क्या बोला? माइथोलॉजी को जाने दो. दे आर डिवाइडेड द हिस्ट्री ना. What is the how they are divided history? Not Ramayana. That is only going to be a part of that. What they said? No. They are given terms for that. अभी एंशियंट को हटा दिया उन्होंने, क्लासिकल पीरियड बताया. अभी उन्होंने बोला कि क्लासिकल पीरियड होगा, फिर वो मेडिवल जो है वही है, देन ब्रिटिश हिस्ट्री एंड फाइनली पोस्ट इंडिपेंडेंस. क्या हो गया? आप खुश नहीं है? What? So you will have to study Ramayana and Mahabharata. No, you don't know Ramayana. I am warning you all that after this exam, this attempt, next year, UPSC is going to change the syllabus. Okay, take it for granted. If you all don't crack in this attempt, then goodbye. Goodbye in the sense, आपको नया तैयारी करना पड़ेगा क्योंकि 10 साल से ऊपर हो चुका है ऑलरेडी सिलेबस को. UPSC revises the syllabus every 10 years, but because of elections, they will not revise the syllabus this year. That means 2024. So 2025, and if by divine inspiration, if the government comes back to power, so then, so obviously, then again you will have to study compulsorily whatever the UGC has now given for the NCERT. So you will have to study. So you are prepared to study the ancient Indian text. नहीं बोल रहे आप? नहीं, ऐसा नहीं होगा. नहीं करना है, आपको करना पड़ेगा. They will change the syllabus definitely. Syllabus has to be revised ना. 10 years हो गए, syllabus को revise तो करना ही है. वो तो अभी election year है इसलिए they are not doing anything, but next year they will revise the syllabus. So you have to study. Okay, socio-cultural context. How it has changed in the socio-cultural context, ethical concerns in the public organization. First, the governance, or rather, the administrators were working for the benefit of the society. Now, what has happened in the society? There is material accumulation. You're understanding what I'm saying? So, more than working for the society, it has become more for self-aggrandizement. Are you following? Yes or no? Legal judicial concept. Yeah.
He was working for the king. And king is an individual. But now there is no king. So there is ambiguity. So now they are acting as if they are the kings and they are working for themselves.
You know, I am reminded of in 1861, there was the person who wrote a powerful this thing to the British government. आपको पता है वो ICS ऑफिसर कौन थे? उन्होंने जो लिखा ना वो ब्रिटिश सरकार को हिला दी. आप हिस्ट्री स्टूडेंट ही हो ना? हाँ, प्रतीक. Okay. Okay. Now let us try to summarize the various issues in a public organization. First is legality and rationality. You will hear these words again and again, over and over again. Second is accountability. Third is work commitment. Fourth is excellence. Fifth is fusion. Sixth is responsiveness. Seventh is utilitarianism. So that means these are some of the ethical values, okay, concerns in a public order. That means they have to work according to these norms. Okay, there are many other, but there are certain lists which has been given. Eighth is on compassion. Ninth is national interest, justice, transparency. Integrity and uniformity. So these are what is called ethical concerns. That means every public organization basically has to work keeping all these things in mind. Broadly. Okay. So violation of any of these concerns can lead to ethical concern. That means when the UPSC will give you a case study, they will broadly give you a case study based on these 13 principles. Did you follow what I said? That means they are trying to ask you whether, supposing a case study will be there of a young civil servant, so whether is it legal, is it rational, they can put a case study based on that. Or they can put a case study on the basis of excellence. Is the civil servant working in an excellent manner? Or is the civil servant working according to the principle of justice? Is the civil servant transparent? Or is the public organization which he's handling or department he or she is handling, is it working for the national interest? All these things are what is ethical concerns in a public organization. That means they have to be taken care of, or that can lead to an ethical dilemma. You all follow what I'm saying? Yes or no? So legality and rationality means what? What does legality and rationality mean? जल्दी जल्दी बोलिए. मयूर, Mohit, I changed your name. You prepared for the test, Mohit? टेस्ट होने वाला था ना, मैं भूल नहीं गया. वो सर ने पोस्टपोन कर दिया. हाँ, yeah, you. I forgot your name. What is your name? I forget people's name. Harshdeep. Harsiddhi. Harsiddhi. Sagar. लीगैलिटी और रैशनैलिटी का मतलब क्या है? Okay, so that means supposing now if your boss is there and he is angry with you and he has to prepare your ACR. ACR का ACR का वैभव. हाँ, ACR क्या है? Okay. Supposing now if your boss is angry with you, so if he prepares a negative report, so has he worked rationally or irrationally? Did you understand? That means no matter whatever the personal level of this thing, when you are working in a public organization, you are supposed to work according to the law and rationally. No decision should be made irrationally. Did you follow what I'm saying? Okay. Responsibility and accountability. I have already told you all that before. The work commitment. Work commitment. Now there is a beautiful statement by Swami Vivekananda. Every duty is holy and devotion to duty is highest form of worship. Okay. Excellence. What is excellence? How do we define excellence in 3 E's? Aditya. हाँ, एक झालं. प्रतीक. इफेक्टिव. ओके, सेकंड हो गया. आदित्य. Economy. So there are 3 E's for excellence. First is economy, efficiency, and effective. If these 3 are fulfilled, then it is excellent. Okay. So administrative efficiency, service efficiency. Fusion. What do you mean by fusion? फ्यूजन का मतलब क्या होता है? Now, every organization has its goals. Yes or no? Society also has its goal. Now, the goal should not conflict. The organization has to fuse its goal with the goals of the society. That is called fusion. Followed, all of you? So that means the organizational goal should cater to the goals of the society. So fusion. Responsiveness. What does responsiveness mean? Mayur. Mohit. Oh my God. Loss of neurons. Mohit. Tell me, Mohit. एक ऑर्गनायझेशन असतं त्याचं गोल वेगळं असतं बरोबर आहे आणि सोसायटीचं मेन गोल्स काय आहे अकॉर्डिंग टू द कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन तर ते ऑर्गनायझेशनचं गोल सोसायटीचं गोल बरोबर एकत्र मिळून काम दॅट इज फ्युजन लाईक इंडियन अँड वेस्टर्न म्युझिक फ्युजन पॉप बांगडा वो बांगडा मच्छी नहीं I'm saying means pop Punjabi now pop is not there actually in Punjabi music is it there no that's a folk music but then they have bought western thing they have made it pop Bangla तो सारे उन्होंने गाने निकाल रहे हो पंजाबी सिंगर सब so they're using na they're fusing that is all fusion music na where we were responsiveness supposing any disaster strikes in a particular place that means civil servant should act immediately he should be responsive immediate action that is called responsible did you follow efficiently to the demands of the situation okay that is called being responsive again as I said you should find case studies for each of these points did you follow without case study these points don't get justified तो आपको एग्जाम में केस स्टडी डालना ही है अगर आप 4 भी पॉइंट लिखते हो तो भी आपको केस स्टडी के साथ जस्टिफाई करने आना चाहिए आपको शायद 13 के 13 याद नहीं रहेंगे सम ऑफ द कॉमन यू मे रिमेंबर नेशनल इंटरेस्ट जस्टिस ये बहुत कॉमन है ओके या अकाउंटेबिलिटी ये बहुत इट इज वेरी कॉमन यू एनीबडी कैन रिमेंबर you don't even if you don't by heart even if you remember 5-6 easily you can remember without by hearting also you don't need to rotify or mug up anything okay justice national interest utilitarianism compassion ये 4-5 तो आपके दिमाग में आराम से आप 6-7 आराम से आप याद कर सकते हो उसके बेसिस पे आप केस स्टडीज ढूंढो did you follow what I said yes or no so what can be the ethical concerns in private institutions now ये हो गए public organization now in private institutions uniformity what can be the ethical concerns
What is nine?
national interest legality rationality accountability work commitment excellence division responsiveness utilitarianism compassion national interest justice transparency integrity uniformity okay now what are the ethical concerns private organizations are worked on the basis of what profit yes a business that makes nothing but money is a poor kind of business. Okay. Now, so what can be the ethical norms in private institution? What can be the unethical areas that they can indulge in? Bribing the public officials. Okay. Second is using false claims by Jews. You can put that in your answer. यूपीएससी बहुत खुश हो जाएगा क्योंकि उन्होंने ही तो पता है ना कि ये जाके आप डालो उनके ऊपर रेट हाँ ओके यूजिंग कंपनी प्रॉपर्टी फॉर पर्सनल यूज दैट मीन्स स्टेइंग इन द हेडक्वार्टर्स ऑफ द कंपनी ओनली ओके फॉर पर्सनल यूज overlooking safety violations to get the job done you know that every building or every kind of thing organization requires safety so when you transgress that then you are misusing this thing then accepting bribe claiming credit for someone else's work. So these are all unethical practices in a private organization. Okay, they are unethical practices in a private organization. So what are the ethical concerns basically there? What are the factors? Why do we need ethics in private institutions? What is the significance? What will happen if these organizations don't work on ethical? Can you tell me some organizations, private organizations working on ethical principles, and some other organizations not working on ethical principles? Tata. Tata Group has a good. What about others? Now tell me some unethical. Okay. Okay. So every private institution has to be responsible, say, accountable to whom here now? Like the recent case of OpenAI. Huh? Mohit. OpenAI से chairman कौन है? Who? I? You don't know. I thought you were giving me the credit. Huh? OpenAI से chairman कौन है? आदित्य. क्या जीपीटी आप यूज करते हो ना वैभव? हाँ? नहीं. ललित. वैभव. प्रतीक. सागर. Aditya. Sam Altman. Have you heard the name? They fired him, the CEO. He only is the founder of OpenAI. बहुत powerful है वो AI का company today in today's world. And then immediately Elon Musk said, how can you, what basis, what is the reason? And they immediately reinstated it because the stakeholders went running. The board of directors fired Sam Altman. Are you understanding? आपको ये सब follow करना चाहिए. You should know that. They will ask you in the exam. Okay. So you're supposed to know that. Second is transparency and disclosure. Same case of OpenAI, where they did not disclose why the board fired him. Transparency and disclosure. Integrity, loyalty, honesty. When we have commitment. Statutory and legal obedience. Responsiveness. ये पिछले इसमें भी था, ये भी पिछले इसमें था. 2 पॉइंट आपको मिल गए. ये भी है, इंटेग्रिटी भी है, ट्रांसपेरेंसी भी है, जो गवर्नमेंट में भी है एंड प्राइवेट में भी है. ठीक है ना. क्वालिटी ऑफ प्रोडक्ट्स एंड सर्विसेज. 7th one. Quality of products and services. Okay. And excellence. So that means now here in any private organization, they are responsible and accountable to various stakeholders. There are multiple stakeholders. The employees, the employers, the customers, okay, all these people, the managers, the society, these all are part of the stakeholders. So any private organization has to be answerable. Are you following what I'm saying? Second is transparency and disclosure. I gave you the example of OpenAI, okay, chairman. Integrity, loyalty, and honesty. That means that so obviously which is there even in a government has to be there even in a private. What about commitment? That means every individual working in a private has to be committed to the goals of the private organization. Like in the public organization, they are supposed to be committed to the civil service value or the goals of the public. Okay, here statutory and legal obedience means what? Obviously, they have to obey the laws of the land. They should not do anything which is unethical or against the law of the land. Okay, then responsiveness towards their clients and stakeholders. So what can be the distinction between private and public institution? How do we base this distinction? In the United States of America, mainly, even the defense is owned by whom? By the private sector. Okay, unlike in India, no doubt now India also is trying to, like the Reliance Group is trying to take over the defense. Okay, so they are trying to privatize these things. So in United States, it works on the principle of neoliberalism. So where the private markets are given a free hand, free laissez-faire economy. Private markets are given a free hand. Whereas in India, countries like India, where still the public sector is dominant. Are you following what I'm saying? Yes or no? So what has changed in these last few years now with regard to private and public in India, especially post LPG? What is LPG? Okay. So any doubt you all have with regard to this topic now? Ethical concerns in private organizations, ethical concerns. As I said, each of this has to be substantiated with case study. Then only your answer is going to bear credibility. Otherwise, you will be writing in the air. You have to write whatever the meaning. You already know what the meaning is. Okay. Based on that, you have to give with a case study. Then your answer gets completed. So these are the things which have to be followed in a private organizations. Earlier, the concerns which have to be followed in the public organization. Okay. What is public? Now, what are the ethical dilemmas in government and private institutions? So what kind, based on all this what you have heard now, what kind of dilemmas can arise in a public and private organization? What kind of dilemmas? So there are three questions: aesthetic questions, scientific and ethical questions. The three dilemmas can be aesthetic questions. So aesthetic means between good and bad. Basically beauty. What is good and what is bad? Okay. Appreciating. That means do we appreciate the beauty of anything? Choices of good and bad. Then scientific questions. Scientific questions are based on the logic of what? True and false. And ethical is based on what? Right and wrong. Did you follow the difference between the three? That means I have to choose between right and wrong. Okay. So supposing now if I have to give a beggar 10 rupees. So yes.
What looks good and what looks bad instead of being good.
Yeah. What looks good and what bad. That
being will be ontological.
Yeah. So what is good and what is bad, basically?
Like what looks good. Not like it need not be good in itself.
That is right. So what looks good and what looks bad? Then what is true and what is false and what is right and what is wrong? Okay. So now if we have to classify any of these questions, how do we get an answer? Supposing now in this, giving 10 rupees to a beggar can be to show compassion. But on the other hand, it can also be to promote his beggary. So you might refuse to give. It's an ethical question. Should I help him or should I not help him? Okay. So when will an ethical dilemma exist? Umang. When will an ethical dilemma exist?
Then we have to plan a public policy which is teaching some employers the young youth of the nation versus giving them the. So we have limited fund which can be either.
You have given an example. That's an example, correct. So significant value conflicts. An ethical dilemma will start when there is a conflict between values, between the government and the people, or the customers, or the business organization and the stakeholders. Are you getting my point? So whenever there is a value conflict, that time ethical dilemma will exist. Second, when there are alternatives, apart from that, there is not one alternative. There are multiple alternatives which are justifiable. Alternatives which are justifiable. Then which one do you choose? Which one is the best? Okay, again, ethical dilemma. So I'm in ethical dilemma. Which best option to choose? Whether should I go with utilitarian? Should I go with rights? Should I go with virtue? Okay, should I go with normative? So which one should I choose? So alternatively justified. All are justifiable, but which one is the best choice? And there are significant consequences on the stakeholders. When there are significant consequences on the stakeholders, then that is going to create ethical dilemma. Significant consequences on stakeholders. So first of all, you have to find out if there is any ethical question in principle. In that case study, what is the ethical principle? Second, you have to find out who are the stakeholders. What is the ethical principle? Who are the stakeholders? What are the alternatives? What are the values in conflict? According to that, you have to give the answer. Did you understand what I said? So first of all, what is the ethical principle in conflict? Whether is there an ethical principle which is in conflict? Yes or no? You have to find out that. Second, who are the stakeholders who are present in that ethical conflict? How many of them? Government is there, people are there, or between two individuals, or between civil servant and the society. You have to find out that. Third, what are the alternatives or what are the conflicts? What are the values which are conflicting between the government and the society? And fourth is what are the alternatives? So according to that, you have to give justification. Did you follow what I said? Like for example, I'll give you. Now there are situations when you have to choose between truth and loyalty. What do you choose? You understood what I said? There are situations where you have to choose the truth and loyalty. Supposing you are loyal to your friend. And now there's the question of, I'm saying, supposing in the exam hall, you're truthful. I mean, he's cheating. You know he's cheating. Now you are loyal to him. Yes or no? He's your friend, so you are loyal to him. And then also, but you also uphold our truth. So what do you choose? Mohit? Why? You have to be able to give reason why. You understood now how to prove an ethical dilemma. You have to be able to prove your point. Why? ऐसे से लॉयल्टी बोल के थोड़ी चलेगा ना. तभी आपको वो थिंकर्स का काम आएगा. यूटिलिटेरियन थियरी, नॉर्मेटिव थियरी, ये थियरी, वो थियरी, समझ में आ रहा है? वो थियरी क्यों पढ़ा है? इसकी वजह से पढ़ा है. तभी आपको जस्टिफाई करके आना चाहिए कि भाई ये मैं क्यों बोल रहा हूँ. Why I think I should be loyal. Okay, you have chosen loyal, fine. That's not a concern. But why? Because it can have severe repercussions. He may pass the exam cheating. Supposing you all are medical students. Okay. And he's cheating and passing the exam. Tomorrow he can become a Munna Bhai doctor. It's a big problem. So your loyalty can kill another patient. You understand what I say now? You may be loyal to him, but tomorrow what about the life of somebody else? So you have put the life of somebody on the stake, on the gullet. हाँ, तो उसको क्या करना चाहिए? क्या करेंगे आप? If you have to choose between individual and community, whom will you choose? So these are ethical dilemmas. If you have to choose between two, between different values, between different individual and a community, then between justice and mercy. If you have to choose between justice and mercy, if you have to choose short-term and long-term consequences, environmental concerns. Okay. If you have to choose between economic development and environmental values, whom do you choose? These all create ethical dilemmas. In that situation, what are the stakeholders? You have to be able to give correct answers, justifying with the case study. With the theories, with the approaches. That means you will say, okay, based on utilitarian theory, Jeremy Bentham said, greatest happiness of the greatest number. Okay. There may be a better option than that. Not necessarily you need to use. I'm just giving an example. There can be a better option than that. So then you may use Kant's. Okay. So, or you may use another, you might use, say, J.S. Mill. Again, Jeremy Bentham's only but a higher version. Okay. Or you might use Rawls' justice. So is it just, supposing environmental concerns are there, is it just for the people, the tribals, or those who are being displaced? So you have to be able to prove why you are giving that theory. So you just can't say, right answer there, I will be loyal, or I will be truthful, or I will support community, or I will support. No. You understanding now what I'm trying to tell you? तो आप जो भी ethical dilemma को face कर रहे हो, आपको उसको prove करने आना चाहिए, वो क्यों आप ये बता रहे? Why are you trying to tell that this requires this kind of a handling? And again, you have to remember ethical concerns of public organization, private organization. ये सारी चीजें आपको तभी ध्यान में रखना है. ये सारी चीजें आपको उठा के आंसर में डाल. Only then your answer becomes ethically correct. For you to score marks. You understand what I say? Otherwise, you are not going to score marks in the paper of ethics. So unless you prove your point that why you are saying, it has to be rational. It has to be logical. You cannot say something which is illogical. Okay. So it has to be rational. It has to be logical. It has to be responsive. It has to be efficient. Practical भी होना चाहिए ना. अगर आप कुछ भी बोलेंगे कि नहीं भाई मैं ऐसे ही बोल रहा हूँ. So that there doesn't make logic to that. It has to be economical also. Okay, did you all follow? Yes or no? So how do we base our ethical ground? What is the basis of ethical ground? So first of all, you have to identify ethical standards. Now, I'll give you an example. A government official has visited the factory for inspection. Now you are in dilemma of loyalty versus truth. Other conflicts are there like impartial treatment, social equality, respecting sovereignty of other nations against the right to intervene, to protect the vulnerable sections like Sri Lanka and Myanmar. So all these come under this category of ethical dilemma. Are you getting my point? Yes or no? Okay, so how do you identify ethical standards? That means what is the grounds on which you are basing your ethics? What grounds are you using to support the logic that you are using? And how do these standards get applied when you face those situations? What is the grounds of your logic and how do these standards get applied? Did you follow? Yes or no? Now you cannot use, though it can be to a certain extent, we cannot use certain grounds. Okay, what? Like for example, basis of ethical ground. Now, ethics is not based on religion. Okay, so you need to understand that. So you cannot base and give your answers based on, you cannot justify based on religion. Okay, ethics is not religion. So you have to give an ethical ground. No doubt you can add some virtues, some values, okay, but ethics is not religion. Similarly, ethics are not laws. Ethics are not laws. Third, ethics is not following. It's not following something. Fourth, ethics is not science. So it is not something which you can prove by science or mathematical calculations. Okay. And ethics is also not what we are feeling. So just because I feel that I should be loyal doesn't make it ethical. So ethics is not based on religion. Ethics is not based on laws. They have certain principles of them. No doubt about that. Ethics is not following anything. And ethics is not based only on science, or ethics is not about what we feel. So you cannot base your grounds only on this logic. You have to use the thinker's approach. Did you follow what I said? That means you have to use utilitarian, okay, then rights, then normatives, then values, then justice, so on and so forth. Deontological, teleological, ये सारे चीजें आपको यूज करनी है. आप समझ रहे हैं मैं क्या बोल रहा हूँ? So whenever you are answering your case study or you're faced with an ethical dilemma, you have to be able to justify on these principles. You can use these to a certain extent, but this cannot become the ground. Am I clear? This cannot become the sole basis. Following or not following? Yes or no? Any query? Culturally accepted norms. I have not mentioned. Culturally accepted norms. Sorry. Ethics is not following culturally accepted norms. Like Khap Panchayat. Any doubt? Any query you want to ask me? Vaibhav, आप टाइम को देख लीजिए. लेक्चर है इसके बाद कितने बजे? 5 बजे है ना लेक्चर? हाँ कितने बजे? हाँ 5 टाइम है. Where you are staying? थाने में. Any other doubt now? So now I think your next lecture is on Saturday. क्या हो गया? आपको जाना है क्या? हाँ? Any doubt you have? Any query you want to ask me? Pages. तो आप लोग सब लोग ने किताब खरीदा कि नहीं खरीदा? हाँ? All of you have purchased. So you read in that book. I have not taken from that book. You can read and you can study that topic. Public service वाले chapter 8. हाँ Sophie's word. Yes. पर्टिकुलर टॉपिक के अंदर भी अभी मैंने बोला ना अकाउंटेबल रिस्पॉन्सिबल ये सारी चीजों के लिए केस स्टडी चाहिए. Which one I said? Aditya, which one? हाँ हाँ 2-3 आहे. एक अजून एक मोठं पुस्तक आहे 7.5 कितीचं आहे. What is the cost of that? There is one practical book of that also, emotional intelligence. Application of emotional intelligence. Yes.
Can you give an example of that aesthetic?
You think and tell me.
I have one, like I want another one.
Huh?
I have one, but I want another.
Do you tell the exam?
So it's like it's related to the private sector. So there are these redevelopment projects that go on Slav. So the people are like they have to leave and then they are giving an apartment. So let's say one private sector takes it up, some famous one. He is like famous for making.
So I'll give you example of Dharavi.
So,
Talk about Dharavi, make it an aesthetic, you know. I mean, in the sense the private stakeholders want to change the entire face of Dharavi.
no, but what they do is that it's only for the people who are buying the first year plans. But the ones they get literally vertical. So that is not like it's a different treatment for different people. There are already those projects going on in Sambodhi.
That's correct.
So they are given a particular rent for the houses. It's upon them whether they want to stay or they are free. And these all are done by blackmailing and all.
सबको प्रॉब्लम है. आप लोगों को पढ़ाई का प्रॉब्लम है या नहीं है? पढ़ाई प्रॉब्लम, फैमिलीज को अभी घर चलाने का प्रॉब्लम है. मोहित को दूसरा कुछ प्रॉब्लम है नहीं है? प्रॉब्लम ही नहीं है आपको. हाँ उसको बालों का प्रॉब्लम है, उमंग को. Just joking. What, do you have problem with it? What happened?
So what was the name of the person?
I don't know. नाही तुम्हाला सांगायचंय, मी नाही सांगणार आहे. मी थोडी सांगणार. नाही there is another book. Working with emotion. Don't listen. So he has another problem. He has another problem. Sagar has another problem. All the girls have different problems. They are in their own world. Yes, have you correct or no? Pratik, what happened? So next lecture, you all will study dimensions to identify ethical standards. Okay, better. What are the dimensions to identify ethical standards? So you will study, you already know that, so I'm not going to repeat it. Utilitarian approach. I'll just tell you, so you have to prepare. Utilitarian approach, rights approach, justice approach, common good approach, virtue approach, Common good approach. Okay. So you have got the 4 approaches. First is utilitarian, rights, justice, common good approach. And virtue. I think 5 others. Sorry. 5 approaches. So that we will do. Ethical governance will do. Actually, sir has to already teach you all, I believe, in governance. Okay, kya padha ke ho? Actually, it has to be done there. Then ethics and international relations. ये सब आपको पेपर 2 में है. Okay, it is there. So any other doubt now you want to ask me? Time homework. I cannot leave you early, so be patient. The term here cannot be defined, but can be explained with traits. I know it is funny. The answer is given. Recognize given. Surprise. Great, yeah, I'm not. I've taught from here. Great. That's why it is not in that book. So that's the thing. What else? Any other doubts? मोटर नहीं लेना है? हाँ? हे 5 वर्षावर झाले. You have to reduce the content. बरोबर. Yes. क्या पढ़ रहे हो आप?
पढ़ नहीं रहा हूँ जो आपने बताया ना वही बनाना था जो आपने नेक्स्ट
हाँ है क्या नहीं उसके अंदर?
सर
नहीं दिख रहा है क्योंकि वो बुक से नहीं पढ़ा है मैंने, इसलिए वो नहीं दिखेगा वो बुक के अंदर. है वो टॉपिक है पब्लिक सिविल सर्विस का, टॉपिक नंबर 8, चैप्टर नंबर 8, but it is different. But anyway, you have to read this book only. Okay. It is given according. See, there is that 8.2 ethical concerns and dilemma value conflicts. उसमें दिया है ना, intrapersonal, interpersonal, okay, that you have to read. Loyalty versus honesty, efficiency versus social stability दिया है. Laissez-faire versus accountability, competition versus cooperation. हाँ, case studies भी दिए हैं उन्होंने. हाँ, so in the book it is given correctly, so you read from that. You can follow this book. Okay, nothing is, things are given well in the book. तो आप चैप्टर 9 भी अगली बार पढ़ के आइएगा और चैप्टर 10 भी, ethics in international relations and law and ethics. Okay, so I'll finish those two topics next time. And if possible, we might go to corporate governance. I don't think, but let us see.
So the next lesson, law, rule and regulation.
हाँ, 9 and 10 आपको करना है. हाँ, हाँ, this I have third edition. इसमें 17 चैप्टर्स है. कितने चैप्टर उसमें?
इसमें
18वां चैप्टर क्या है? केस स्टडीज. वो तो इसमें भी है. कौन सा? Send the book. हाँ, this is the new chapter. Value education नहीं था इसके अंदर, इसमें नहीं है. So they have added new chapters here. Okay. So that's good. I think based on the UPSC syllabus they have asked. Correct. That's good. सब लोग आप लोग नया ही ले लो फिर अभी. बाकी सब सेम. So any other doubt? Take the 4th edition, new edition. I don't think 3rd edition will be available also now. Old maybe. 4th edition. All of you, 4th edition of Karthikeyan. Okay. Any other doubt? So okay, thank you. Stop the listening. कोणाकडे? हा, बंद.